Welcome to the Smart Connector podcast. I've got a great guest for you today, Tim Cakir. So, Tim, welcome.
Hi, Jane. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
And you're a growth consultant, aren't you, Tim? And you help companies, entrepreneurs, and students achieve fast and consistent growth in their businesses. And you specialize in startups. So, you've worked with around 17 startups to date, and you've helped two startups receive over 1.7 million euros in funding, which is just amazing. So, we're going to talk about startups and how startups can get out of that startup phase and actually on the path of growth today. And we're also going to talk about you and your history and everything that you've been up to, because you've got a very, very fascinating background and in music, and also you're a university lecturer. And so, love to get into all of that as well. So it's great to have you here.
It's a pleasure, and I'll be more than happy to share everything that I know.
Okay. So before we get into it, Tim, let's just go into your background. So you're a music producer and a DJ, and you've got a music startup yourself, haven't you? So would you like to just tell us all about that?
Absolutely. I'm just building a music startup right now. It's more of a ed tech for music education, right? So it's going to be an education technology platform for students to learn electronic music production and to learn it from producers out there, DJs that they respect, and so on. So it's a bit of a marketplace. But
Oh,
since I'm also, as you mentioned, a lecturer, I'll be able to help the artist actually create a course curriculum that makes sense, a timeline, a syllabus that makes sense. Because every music person obviously is not an educator at heart, but since the pandemic and so on, we saw that they needed an extra source of income because there was no live playing anymore. There was no clubs, there was no bars, there
yeah.
was no events. So that's kind of what we've been building with a friend of mine, my co-founder. I can't say much more because it's still in stealth mode, but it's coming soon. I can say the name. It's not announced, I think, on LinkedIn, but I'll say it is Untitled Space. We're
Oh,
about to launch in about, I think, 20 days. We will do a soft launch on our website. The website is weareuntitled.space. Soon to come. So if you're interested in music education, that's going to be the place to go to. Hopefully, that's what we're aiming for. But my background, Jane, on music is it's an incredible story because I always loved music since I was a little kid, and I always wanted to study music. But I'm half Turkish, half French. I was born in Istanbul. My dad is a lovely man, but he didn't understand the concept of me studying music. And he was like, "Why you can't study music? I'm a businessman. You need to study something business, and and take over my business one day." And I was like, I was quite rebellious. I was like, "No, I love music," and so on. And one day I was very lucky. My dad's cousin had they were building a how can I say a stadium for concerts, right? A hall. And they hired a sound engineer, and they spent about 300,000 euros, if I remember correctly, back then, for a 3-day project for the sound engineer to design the sound systems and the acoustics of the space. And I remember my dad that they called me and said, "Son, if you want to study sound engineering, no worries, you can do that." Right? So I had the luck to study actually media production, concentrating in audio technologies. That was my studies. Obviously, I've done much more than that since. But in London, in the UK, what I had is I had a recording studio, a music recording studio. I had a online radio station, and I had a big techno party that I was running every 2 months,
oh.
about 2,000 people, and I used to book some of the biggest artists, and I usually would close the event myself. I would play myself. So that's what I did professionally in the music. But then I realized that I couldn't party from Thursday to Monday anymore, and I was getting a bit old quickly. And I realized that I was actually marketing everything that we did, right? So I was marketing the radio, the studio, I was marketing the events. So I took a different route in my career, and I went into marketing. About, I think this about 10 years ago or so, I really started focusing on marketing. And then I found myself in the startup world.
Yeah. So and the startup world is a very exciting world, isn't it? Because it's a very creative world. So I can see why you ended up there because you've got a creative background. You're a creative guy. And, startups, they're all about innovation, creativity, ideas, really, aren't they? So there's a
Mhm.
natural synergy, isn't there?
Absolutely. It all starts from an idea. And I think everything is a startup. So, I mean, it's going to go against maybe my belief, but every company is a startup. You start somewhere, you have an idea. Hopefully it's a solution to a problem that exists, because then you'll be a successful company. If not, you'll just ride a little bit of the wave and die down, or just stay quite stagnant. But to grow, usually what we find out is the companies who actually solve a big problem, and that comes from that small idea that we have, and then we build, and then we get people to believe in it as well, and the mission, vision, values of the company, and we go at it together. And I think it's a very, very interesting um, concept of how we follow a leader who had an idea, and how we want to solve this problem all together. And I think that those are the successful ones, and those are where we want to work. We don't want to work in these old school corporate companies that are soulless, that are there to just consume and take energy from us, so that we do work for them,
Yeah.
and where we don't believe in anything that we're doing. We just believe in the money that we're taking, and we want to go home. And I think that era is ending.
Yes, I really do actually, and, funnily enough, my daughter's she just left, Samsung. She was a marketing manager at Samsung, and she's just left for a very exciting startup called Fair for that very reason. I think it matters more and more to particularly to young people who are looking at decades of their working life ahead of them, and they're just thinking, "Well, you know what? I have values that need to be respected, and I want my work and my values to be aligned."
Absolutely. And I think that we're going to see this switch more and more. I think this is what they call about the American Great Resignation as well, that has been happening. A lot of people are resigning from their jobs. Um, Entrepreneurship has been something that we've been promoting a lot lately. Freedom of work hours. Of course, was sadly, I mean, we didn't want a pandemic. But one of the pros of that pandemic was, we can spend more time with our families. We can work from home. We don't have to wait an hour in traffic to get to work, or in a train. We don't have to commute those hours. I think that's been an amazing revolution, almost, and I believe this is going to continue even if the pandemic is over, almost, hopefully, and that we find this freedom in our calendar, and I think that's super important.
Yeah, and it's a real opportunity, isn't it? Because we're all very motivated by growth, aren't we? And if all of our time is consumed living somebody else's agenda, which is really what happens when we're in employment, then we don't really have that time to grow ourselves as individuals. So I'm in love with entrepreneurship for exactly the same reason, because it gives us that flexibility, doesn't it?
I mean, everybody doesn't have to be entrepreneurs, but I love what you just said there about the growth, right? And sometimes we're in these companies that are not about our growth. And what we realize is those companies that will have very high turnovers on employees, on team members, and the companies that keep the good team members and that keeps evolving is the companies who actually have a large amount of time and budget for personal growth, and for education, training of the employees themselves.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So you lecture in entrepreneurship and business,
Mhm.
don't you, as well, Tim, at the
Yeah.
University of Barcelona?
Yeah, I do in two schools. One's called Geneva Business School, and one's called ESEI, which is Escuela Superior, which is
Yes.
a business school as well. And I do master's program, and I do leadership for business management. I do entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship. I do a lot of topics around marketing, and that'll
Yeah.
be business analytics and so on. And it was 3 years ago, I think. It was something that I started to do because I gave a guest lecture in one of the schools.
Yes.
And the director of the school came to me and said, "Hey, we would like you to teach." And I'm going to say this here, but I said to this person, I said, I hate school. I hated school. So I don't want to teach. And the director said, "This is exactly what we want you to teach." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Then I thought about it that night, I remember, and I got back to this director. I said, "You know what? I'll take one class. Let's see what happens." I took this master's program of a 7-week program. I had about 25 students, I think. And it was digital marketing strategies and technologies. And it was very project-based learning. And I gave them a very open project to create a company, to create the marketing strategy and all the technologies that needs to be in the company. And in the 7th week, it was presentation week. And I was amazed. I was absolutely amazed. I was like, wow, this is amazing. Some amazing work came out from the students, and I really enjoyed it. So
Yeah.
then the director went back and said, "Hey, we got really good feedback. Do you want to teach?" I was like, "You know what? I will teach. Because I can teach in my own way, and it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be what I saw when I was in school." Sadly, when I was in school, it was a bit more learn by heart, not practical. It is sad. I don't want that to happen to the younger generations. So I committed about 25-30% of my time to teaching.
Yes, yes. And, there's a world of difference, isn't there, between the education system that's taught in schools, or certainly here in the UK, and what's taught on an entrepreneurship or business program in
Mhm.
a progressive university. So, I often think that the education system is in need of a dire overhaul because they're not really equipping children with skills for life, and not these days. They ought to be teaching them communications. I think they ought to be teaching them certainly finance, personal finance, and also entrepreneurship and marketing, and all of these things that are going to make us thrive and really get us to where we need to get to in our lives. I don't
Mhm.
know if you agree with that, but
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I agree. But also, it's so that we can create a better world in the future. Because as
yeah,
we've seen, sadly, it's quite negative. What I'm going to say about we're downhill right now, and
mm,
how are we going to switch this is by bringing young minds and educating them in a way that they create more sustainable companies. They create better workplaces for everybody. So there's less anxiety, there's less depression. People are happier. Places where they appreciate family time and personal time, and they promote that. So
yes,
this is why I tell to my students, on especially I did I think it was last month, we had the leadership development week, which is an
yes,
intensive 1 week, and I did about 8 sessions of an hour and a half with about 30 students or so. And I gave an aspirational speech at the end, and I said, guys, you are creating the future world for us, and I do commit to helping you guys as much as I can from the knowledge that I have. You guys are going to have even more knowledge very, very soon, or maybe you already have. But I'm here for that, because I'm going to retire at some point, and I want a better world. And now I have a little daughter that's 4 months old, and I want her to
oh,
have a better future.
yeah, we're very, very motivated by seeing our children and thinking about our future generations. We all have responsibility, don't we, to make the impact that we can.
Well, we have to, because if not, I don't know. It's the solution is not. I've said this before, I think, in a podcast, and I'm sure some
Yes.
people didn't like it. But the solution is not to go to Mars. I love Elon Musk, but the goal is not to go to Mars and destroy that planet as well. The goal is to save the planet that we have at hand. And David Attenborough gave an amazing speech at that big conference, right? And they said the time is now. I mean, we're already kind of late, but we still can do something, and we could still save years and years of this planet. But we have to act now.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. So Tim, what I'd like to do is really get onto this topic of startups and
Mhm.
how startups can get to that place where they're actually scaling,
Mhm.
because it's a tough thing to do, isn't it? Start a business from scratch. And there are proven frameworks that you're quite critical of, and you've actually developed your own framework. And so what I'd like to do is just get into what growth frameworks do people conventionally apply to the startup process, and what do you think about them, and how do you do it differently?
I mean, I'll start very quickly on that, Jane, if I may. On something a bit interesting is that I have a lot of students that will come. They'll say, "Hey, Tim, I have a business idea and so on," and they're like, "Here's my business plan," and it's like a 50-page business plan, and I'm like, okay, how long did you spend time on this? They're like, oh yeah, it took me months and months. And I'm like, okay, maybe that business idea is already gone. Maybe somebody else is doing it. So what I really recommend is to do more the business model canvas, the BMC as we call it. It's a very simple canvas. It's a digestive model, let's say, of the business plan, and you don't have to go months and months preparing that. It's a few workshops and really understanding your problem, your solution, the features that you bring in, a bit more the personas or the customer targets that you have, and so on. And really, it's a very nice little canvas framework that highlights the most important things from a business plan. Business plans are really for old school VCs, I would say, venture capitalists, who really love to read pages and pages and pages and pages, and I think that's not even happening anymore. So that's the number one mistake that I see when starting a startup. Everybody that really focuses on the business plan and not simplifying that. So simplify that. Then the first thing, it's a product market fit. I'm sure that everybody says this all the time, but it's making sure that what you're developing or what you're offering, there's a need for it. Right. And for this, you have a lot of frameworks as well. I'm not going to start talking about them, all of them, but there's one, the use cases. So understanding the frequency of the problem happening, and how many times we can actually get these people to use our services or our product, and so on. So there's a little table for that. If you write down use cases map or something like that, you'll be able to find that online. So it's really being obsessed about the problem. I always say that it's the solution is a very, very tiny percentage of actually what the company should be about. The whole company should be obsessed about the problem that you're solving, because today you might have a service or a feature that you think is the solution, but very quickly you'll find out that the solution is completely something else, or there's a better solution out there, right? So be obsessed with the problem, the rest will come. And again, problem solving, there's a lot of different frameworks out there as well for that. But just continuing a little bit, because I'm trying to make a little bit of the journey of a startup in my head. Then you need to really have, and I think that's where you want to get to, some goal setting frameworks, right? So, and a goal setting framework is not just let's make this money, let's make $50 million. No, it's not. You have to have some like a framework like OKRs, right? OKRs is objectives and key results. It's been used by Google. It was invented at Intel years ago by Andy Grove, and it's been a very, very famous framework, and a lot of people use it. A lot of my clients use it, or they book me. They book my time so that we can help them implement the OKRs framework in their company. But I've seen in my career in the 17 plus startups now, because now I think it's about 22 or 23, and that I'm right now. I have a few clients that are ongoing active clients, and what I've realized, the OKRs were a little bit limited, right? Because we talk about the objectives and some key results to go to that objective, so that we say that these objectives are accomplished, right? I found some really not huge problem, but some things that didn't make sense to me. So I started iterating a little bit, and I had some couple of workshops from some people even higher than me on this topic, and then we came up with a solution, and it was more about talking about not just the objectives, but talking about the purpose of that objective, right? So why do it, right? So let me try to break it down, if that's okay. So an objective, is what do you want to do, right? You ask yourself that question, what do you want to do? It's quite qualitative, right? It's not quantitative at all. It's very qualitative. It has to be aspirational so that everybody follows. Oh yeah, that's our objective, right? And then you have to really describe the purpose. Why do it? Why do that? Right? Because that's where the mission, vision, values starts coming back in, and so on, and that's very important. And then the key result is really where we get down to the numbers. How will you know you've done it? Right. And that usually is quantitative. It's this is the KPI that we're going to track. This is the numbers that we are aiming for, and so on. So then we're able to put a financial or a metric to our framework. And then you can also go on the initiatives, right? So what do we execute? How do we do that? Like, what are the things that we need to do? Right. So that's the initiatives. And I've changed this model around, which I'm going to explain my model in a bit. And then one thing that I realized that wasn't done at all, it's the blockers, right? The challenges, right? The issues. What stands in your way? You should ask yourself this question. And in everything that you do, if you ask what are the blockers, at first people say, oh, maybe it's negative. No, it's not negative. Actually, being able to highlight blockers gives you a place for finding a solution to that problem or to that blocker. So
Yeah.
I kind of changed this around a little bit, and I'll mention his name because he's really doing really well. His name is Chase Damiano, and I was in a workshop from him about this, and I loved how he started thinking about the next version of OKRs. And I got obsessed about this. I got obsessed about this for multiple years. I've had even my students actually on business intelligence work on it as well as their project. So thanks to them, to all my business intelligence students who's helped really create a better framework for the world for goal setting. And now I'm starting to preach, if we may say, the GCO model, which is the goals, challenges, and opportunities. Right.
Mm.
So it's kind of the same, but at least we're really putting in the DNA of the framework, of the methodology, the challenges, right? And so basically, goals is still your OKRs, right? You'll have your
Yeah.
objective key results, right? So qualitative and quantitative.
Yeah.
Your challenges now are your blockers, your issues, the problems that are happening in the company. You'll be able to have a place where you put the challenges so everybody else can see it.
Yeah.
And then I had ideas before, but I saw that it wasn't very business orientated, and people didn't get it. They're like, "Oh, ideas are great, but there was always a but." So then I brought this concept, opportunities, right? So what are the opportunities around those challenges? What are the opportunities around those goals? And we're able to do a very simplified version of, I think, a growth model, if I might say, right? So goals,
Yeah.
challenges, and opportunities. And if you're able to work around these and making sure that it's transparent around throughout the whole company, you'll be able to find some amazing opportunities from people that you've never expected, right? So an example could be that you have a challenge in customer support, and you have an agent that keeps fixing the same problem 100 times a week, right? And if they can put this challenge up on the company's workplace or central information, knowledge management system or so on, and if everybody can start bringing opportunities to these, and then one of the product guys or a developer says, hey, I can fix that in 30 minutes, an hour, right? And this person actually gets elected or selected for his opportunity or her opportunity to implement that. And suddenly the customer support agents get those 100 problems that they were doing a week as an extra time, so they can work on better things for the customer, right? So they can have better relationship with the customer and be there more. So that's a quick win. And we don't do this often, sadly, because we silo a lot departments, right? We silo
Yeah.
marketing, we silo finance, we silo product, and this happens naturally. It's normal, because this is what we've seen in the industrial age. We started to create companies and enterprises, and we realized that it was very hierarchical, and we were putting, you are marketing, you have a marketing director, and you answer to this marketing director, you're the marketing executive or manager, blah blah blah, right? And we kept separating people and putting them in a box. And
Yeah.
where the magic of growth happens is when you start thinking out of the box and having a different angle, where a finance person actually looking at customer support, it's going to be a whole different experience. They're going to look at it from a different angle. The things they're going to find is things that maybe the customer support agent wouldn't think, because they're trained to be a customer support agent, and the finance is trained for numbers, right? Combining or making cross-skill teams, I think, is the future of growth.
I really, really love that. And when you were talking, I was just like the penny dropped, and I thought, this makes so much sense. And it's much more suited to a kind of flatter structure, a more sort of elastic kind of organization, that kind of startup mode. It makes perfect sense. And I love the idea of really focusing on the challenges, because overcoming challenges is what growth is all about, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So therefore, putting that right at the very heart of the process, if you like, and actually, the other thing that I really love is those kind of cross-functional kind of capability.
Mhm.
It's really, I love it. I think it's great.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've been testing it. I've been testing a very soft testing with my clients. It looks like it's working quite well. So right now, I'm actually working on a book about it,
Uh-huh.
and hopefully next year, it'll be the launch of the book that will be talking about goals, challenges, and opportunities, and why companies should speak about the challenges. They should speak about the problems that they have, and not sugarcoat everything. And sometimes honesty and transparency, even internally, is very, very important.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm absolutely blown away by that. I'm just kind of thinking back to various situations that, I've encountered, and just thinking how somebody like you coming along and actually saying, "No, no, no, you're doing it all wrong. Look at it this way." We're just, "Oh yeah," just it's just new, it's just fresh, I love it.
Well, I mean, I gave this this example, and it's a silly example, but in my mind, it kind of worked. When the
Yeah,
pandemic hit, if we did have such a framework between the countries, and
yeah,
we actually spoke about these challenges, and if other countries and other cultures could have read opportunity to other cultures' challenges, we might have not faced this such a long period of pandemic, right?
yeah,
But in the beginning, we didn't collectively think about it, right? And we were very isolated in the problem. China had it, then Italy had it, then it started spreading around, and we were like, oh, Italy has it. It's not our, we're not there, right? And actually, we should say, oh, Italy has this challenge. Let's all get together and let's bring in opportunities to the table, and we could have maybe solved it, right? We could have done a full lockdown from the get-go. What I'm trying to say here is a company is basically bringing people collectively together, and so that we work together on a purpose, right, on a goal, and
yeah,
so on building this
mhm,
company. But we don't tap into collective intelligence, right? The CEO or the VPs and so on are like, oh, I know what to do. No, no, no. That's great. Okay. But what if the people who are actually in the trenches there, they are there with the customer, they are there making the marketing campaigns, had better ideas than you, right? And they could help you make better decisions, right? So that's definitely, is what you mentioned, is to start flattening the hierarchy, and
yeah,
being able to really tap into collective intelligence, and not putting people in boxes again, and not siloing certain people, right? We pay extra amount of salaries in big tech companies because we want the best people. We bring
yeah,
them on board, and we still put them in a box, and we're like, here's your job description, here's your little box, go ahead and execute, right? But
yes,
we don't stop enough and ask him, hey, what are the opportunities you see? We do ask him in the beginning, in 30, 60, 90 days, because that's like a tradition, say, oh, where do you see problem areas, and so on. And then we don't have a space, or in the culture or the DNA of the company, we don't create an open space for every employee to have a word, right, where they can speak up, and they can say, hey, there's a problem, I see it, I want to speak about this, and I want other people to help me find some solutions, some opportunity to these challenges, right? I think that's kind of what I'm trying to preach. That's what I'm trying to bring to companies, and that goes beyond my marketing experience. Now it goes more on what I call the growth ops. Making sure that at the right time, the right people, they have the right technologies, they have the right frameworks, the right goals. That will grow your company, right? So that startup phase will become a scale up phase, because you have all these ingredients in your formula.
yeah, I really, really, really do like that. I think it just makes perfect sense. And when you think about it, it's also much more aligned to us as individuals, because, we don't box ourselves in. I mean, we have diverse interests and skills and talents as humans, don't we? We're kind of like an interesting mosaic, all of us.
Hmm.
And, I remember, well, I came from the advertising industry, then the media industry in London. Very, very, very traditional business, because it's been evolving for, decades really, and it's quite slow moving. Although obviously there's, a lot of exciting and innovative ideas that are coming out of those, big agencies. The actual model, the business model, was very traditional. Everybody was expected to stay in their box. If you were a copywriter, you were a copywriter. That's all you ever did. If you were in production, that's all you ever did. If you're in business development, that's your job, and nobody ever asked you if you wanted to kind of contribute to any other discipline. And
Hmm.
it gets very frustrating after a while, because as humans, we don't want to be put in a box, do we? We don't put ourselves in a box. We don't put our friends in a box. We don't put our family in a box. We recognize one another as individuals. So why are we expected to operate in that box-like way when we go to work?
And this is I'm gonna touch up on a question that I get often from my students. They're like, "Hey Tim, don't you think that a lot of jobs are gonna be obsolete because AI is coming, machine learning, all the technologies and so on?" I'm like, maybe, but there are gonna be better jobs. They're gonna be more creative jobs. They're gonna be more thinking outside the box jobs, right? Why? Because actually an algorithm is in a box. You have an input and an output, and then this black box, the
Uh-huh.
algorithm things happen, machine learning and data sets and so on. And what I see, and I'm sure some people will tell me that I'm wrong on this because I've heard that before, is that the machines are not creative. We can train them to be creative, but we still train them with a data set to be that creative, right? So machines are not able to think outside the box because they are a box, right? you know and we humans are actually designed to think outside the box. We dream, we come up with ideas that never existed, right? And that's our creative side, that's our thinking outside the box. So let's use technology for its purpose. Let's give the automation of low cognitive work, things that take time, that are not creative, that are not inspirational or aspirational, and let's start making humans um, creative animals again, because that's what we are, right? So let's
Yes.
amplify that. And I think
Yeah.
that this is why this box system is not going to work. And for many years there's been, oh, I think you should be more thinking outside the box, thinking outside the box. Yes, because we should never be in a box, right? So how are we going to do this? It's what's happening right now. And I know many companies, from HR perspectives, from educational perspectives, from even financial technologies and so on, trying to solve this thing of being more collective, being more using machine learning and AI for the things that we shouldn't, and start gaining some time so we can think about higher, more creative stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, it really is the best time to be creative or to be a creator, isn't it, Tim? Right at the moment. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, if you have an idea, you want to start a product, right? You don't have to code anymore, right? You don't have to code. You have no code. No code is a
Yeah.
massive trend, and I've even seen it myself. You have module based, drag and drop. You can make apps. You can make web apps. You can make so many technologies. You can tap into machine learning technologies of Google and so on. There's so many open source technologies there. You don't have to code your own AI and so on. If you want to create some content and you want to do a podcast or a stream, you get StreamYard, you get Restream, you get whatever software out there. You don't have to build a streaming platform. You don't have to understand much of the tech behind it. You
Yeah.
integrate your LinkedIn, you integrate your YouTube, you put a camera in front of you, you click, and you create content, right? You show your face, you show your your knowledge, you share whatever you have to say. You want to create a blog, it's even easier, right? That's been easy thanks to WordPress and websites, but it's even easier now. You don't even need a website. All right. So you can start a newsletter, you can create there's so much. We are becoming a creator's world, absolutely. And I think that people who actually say, oh, I don't know where to start and so on, I have this idea, is like, I'll tell them, just start somewhere. You don't have to know where to start. Just find something and launch it and see how it works, because it might work, it might not work. If it doesn't work, you'll understand why it didn't work, and you can iterate on it. um you know and this is kind of what I also try to tell my students. I have many students that are like, oh, I've been thinking for this a long time and I don't think about it anymore. Just launch it, publish it, send it. Let's see what happens. And then they do it they do it the next week. They come, they're like, oh, what I had in mind was wrong. I'm like, oh, that's great. Do you know why it's wrong? They're like, yeah, I know why it's wrong. And you can see that their eyes, they're shining. They're like, now I know that what I was thinking, it's wrong, but I know why it's wrong. So now I know what to do. I think the biggest thing that holds us back, it's thinking a lot about what to do and not doing it. So we should do it. And as you mentioned, it's a creator's world. You have enough tools out there, you have enough education on free platforms as well to help you launch whatever you want. So there's no more excuse.
Yeah, I think the other thing that people get really hung up about is wanting things to be perfect and comparing themselves to other people that have been doing it for a lot longer than them. And I mean, I've got caught in that trap myself in the past. And I remember, I think the best person that kind of had this piece of advice that really stuck in my head, and I use it sometimes, is the thought leader Brené Brown. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but anyway, she's she's a researcher and a writer, and she's written very, very good books, and got a fantastic TED talk on shame. And she said, the thing about it is you have to be willing to just do the shitty first draft. That was what she called it when you're writing a book, the shitty first draft. So basically, just put it all out there. Don't care. Don't get hung up on perfection. If it's bad, you're still doing a lot better than people who are just invisible and not trying at all. And people respect that. That's what I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it here. I'm the same. We all the same. I want it to be really great, and so when I don't launch things, I have so many things I haven't launched, and I have luckily some mentors come. They're like, "No, do it, launch it now. It's cool," and we want this possibly, affirmation from other people, because we are humans and we care about peer-to-peer feedback and so on. I've been wanting to start a podcast slash a stream for a long time, and I still haven't done it. And I've been guest on some amazing podcasts like yourselves, and it inspires me, and I'm like, okay, launch it. So hopefully 2022, yeah, you will see that from me as well. I'd love to create a place where I interview people about tools, because I'm a tool addict. Platform softwares, apps, anything like that. It could be even hardware products, and I want to create a space for that, a weekly space for Tool Time Tim. And that's the title, Tool Time Tim.
Tool Time Tim, I like that.
And
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this too long now, and what I'm trying to say here is that don't worry, guys. This happens to everybody, but at some point we have to say, let's go for it. And I think that my time finally is coming to start that as well. So
Yeah.
so don't be too sad, or that you didn't launch the thing that you wanted to launch. Just go and do it, and
Yes.
see what happens. As you mentioned, I love what you said there. You're already an extra mile ahead, than the people who doesn't do it, that just are thinking about it. At least you've executed something, and you
Yeah.
learn a lot from it.
And most people in the world, they don't do anything like this. They don't write books, they don't launch YouTube channels, they don't create landing pages and websites. The vast majority of people in the world do nothing like this.
Mm.
So actually, even having one asset out there it's just great progress, and then we can just build from there. And I think what happens is the more stuff we've got out there and the more we kind of layer it, then the more we're really building our personal brand and our signature, and people are then getting to know what we're all about. And that's really important in business today, isn't it? To have that footprint, that digital footprint.
Yeah, this is why now, I don't want to get into the topic because I don't know much about NFTs and so on like that, right?
Yeah.
We're now finally finding digital ways of getting trademarks and property rights and so on of digital items. But this is how every company was built. This is how everything was built around us. Anything that you look around you on hardware, on software, it just came up from somebody trying something. And Google was not Google. All these big companies, they were not these big companies. They started as a tiny thing. The best example I think here is obviously Amazon. Jeff Bezos, he in Seattle in a little garage, he was selling books. He was trying to sell books, and now he can sell whatever he wants. I love there's a meme about him. It's when he looked like when he started Amazon in the garage, and he's like, I sell books. And then now he has one with this, he looks like Vin Diesel, no, he looks like The Rock or whatever. And he's like, I sell whatever the F I want. You see that evolution. We can all do it. It's just, I think it's perseverance, it's testing things, it's experimenting. And it's getting out of your comfort zone, and that's growth, is when you start getting out of your comfort zone. So we need to do that more often.
And of course, the first Amazon website is absolutely shocking. And somebody showed it to me recently, and you could not really have had a more clunky, a worse looking website. So, that's enough to inspire all of us, really, isn't it?
Well, but that was back in the day, and I'm gonna say
Yeah.
this. I'm sorry, but I live in Spain, and we have like a shop like Tesco's or Sainsbury's, right? It's called Mercadona, and in my area where I am, their website is even worse than that first Amazon website. Still, and you wonder, you're like, guys, come on, you have to, you have to keep up with the trends. At least Amazon did that. I mean, the Amazon website is still not the best website in the world because it's just so busy and so on. But it's designed in a way to have millions of products so that we can buy whatever we want, whenever we want. Is Amazon doing tests all the time? Yes. I love, there's say he said, I don't exactly remember what he said, but he says, growth and the success is what you test daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, right? If you don't test anything, you will fail. But if you start testing now, you will find a solution in a given time frame. So stopping and not doing something will kill you. But testing, you'll have failures, but you won't die, and you'll find the solution later on. He had a great sentence about it. It didn't come to me now, but that was that was the core of it, is like, try things all the time, and you'll find something that matches maybe your passion. You'll find something that solves a problem. You'll find something that inspires you or inspires other, and that's where you're going to be happy, possibly, right? If you want to be able to create something.
Yes, and I've interviewed some great marketers on the show, and one of the things that stuck in my mind again was really a guy who was talking about the frictionless experience of Amazon, and we all know that Amazon, it hasn't got the most stunning visual brand identity. It's promises, well, yeah, I mean, it's okay, but I mean, you don't see them with all these big television ad campaigns or anything like that. What they deliver is a frictionless experience, and that kind of experiential aspect of business today is really, it's so important, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm gonna, because you said about frictionless experience, I'm gonna say something here, because we were talking about frameworks a little bit. For anybody out there who has a service, has a product, has a website, whatever you do, right? Do a friction audit. Conduct a friction audit. Act like you are your user, act like you are your customer, and try to go through the whole process that you've designed, and try to pinpoint the frictions that are happening, right? And map it out, from where you find the site, how you put in your shopping cart. Let's talk about e-commerce, right? How you put it in a shopping cart, how you get out, how you order it, how it arrives to your house, how can you recommend again, how can you review the product, right? That whole journey, that whole customer life cycle, or the customer journey, map it out, go through it yourself, find the frictions. If you write friction audit on Google, I'm sure you'll find a lot of stuff, and pinpoint those frictions and get rid of one friction every quarter, right? Or one friction every month if you're even faster. That's going to be growth. You're going to have an amazing site service. You're going to optimize it as you go. So I think friction audit is a great way to start, to be able to be frictionless.
Amazing, amazing. Well, Tim, it's been such an incredible interview. I've certainly learned so much from you, and I've really, really enjoyed interviewing you. And I'm sure that our viewers and our listeners will equally appreciate all those amazing wisdom and insights, and everything that you talked about today. It's just been great. So I just wanted to thank you so much for joining us. Now, if anybody wants to find you, what's the best way to get hold of you?
I think there's two ways. One is LinkedIn. If you're a big LinkedIn user, you go on LinkedIn, you put my name, first name, last name, Tim Cakir, yeah, and you'll be able to find me very easily on LinkedIn. And there I share a lot of stuff. I have my newsletter and so on. Or you can go to my website, which is the same, timcakir.com. That's timcakir.com. And I try to answer to everybody. I have even a link on my LinkedIn where I offer a 15-minute call, and that I just offer to see if you want to bounce ideas off or see how we can work together, how I can help you. I'm always open for that. So yeah, just reach out. I'll be more than happy to see what you're working on and how I can help you.
Yeah. So if you have a startup, if you're thinking of starting up a business, if you want to launch a new business, but you're not sure which way to go, then Tim is your guy. He's your go-to guy. So make sure you take advantage of that opportunity to speak to him, because, if today is anything to go by, that will probably be one of the most valuable 15 minutes of your life.
Of your life, I'm not sure. The bar is
Today,
very high
maybe.
now. I'm like,
Yeah.
pressure is on, Jane. Thank you so much for that. No, but I'll try my best to make it an okay 15 minutes. It won't be a waste, hopefully. Jane, I would like to thank you so much as well for inviting me to the Smart Connector. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you and to get to know you. And hopefully, I've been able to add some value to your listeners.
Yes, you're most welcome. Thank you, Tim. Speak soon.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.